please welcome to the stage Peter Jackson, CEO of Flutter Entertainment. Do you have something for me?
I do.
Thank you.
I thought you might want a hat.
Oh, it does.
America's #1 sports.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining me. It's your birthday coming up. I should have gotten you a gift.
That's very kind.
Well, thank you for being here. Your second consecutive year here at G2E. There's a lot to discuss, as I mentioned, and I think I just really wanted to ground the conversation by reminding everybody of the perch that you occupy. Okay, now just bear with me because there's a lot to get to. Number one, gaming operator in the world, US, but also as you're expanding now in Italy, Brazil, Sisal, SNI, I mean, how much more of the world is there for you to conquer?
Well, look, we're obviously delighted with the position that we have here in America as the #1 sports betting and gaming business. And whilst the addressable market in America is huge, it's worth remembering that internationally the market is bigger. And so we're very pleased with the progress we've made in terms of expanding overseas. To have the #1 position, the leading position in the UK, in Italy, in Australia, a number of other markets around the world. And when we look at the opportunities, there are very significant ones ahead of us. The TAM, or the addressable market internationally, we think by 2030 will be nearly $300 billion. It's considerably bigger than the opportunity in North America. But look, both of them are important for us, and we see opportunities to share sort of expertise and things between them. We think that our international business makes our US business even stronger.
I just think it's quite ironic now, the name Flutter, because in British slang, it means a small wager, right? And you are anything but small at this point. And especially under your leadership, since taking over in 2018, I counted at least 8 deals that have propelled you to this state. Why is it so important for Flutter to have such a large footprint? I know you talked about it a little bit just now, but just say a little bit more about the way that you think about these deals.
Yeah, our strategy is very clear. We want to be the #1 operator here in the US, and we also want to have these gold medal positions globally. Like other digital industries, we believe scale is very important, but diversification is also important in our industry specifically. And I think whilst we aspire to keep growing the business, we have to also ensure that we can keep nimble and move quickly. One of the important things that we do at Flutter is operate the business on a very federal basis. So Amy, who's here in the audience, who runs the FanDuel business, Amy has all the capabilities she needs to be able to run FanDuel without any sort of interference, but has access to sort of expertise, product and technology from across the world if she needs to draw on it. And the same is true for the other parts of the world. So I think we try and ensure that we can keep growing, but also keep moving very quickly as well.
This next question is sort of in jest, but sort of not. I mean, are you here to shop, right? When you're at a convention like this, the added liquidity of the primary listing now in the US, you've talked about that on earnings calls being an acceleration for your business?
Yeah, we're very pleased with the change in listing we made. One of the things that we were anticipating was that we'd see a step up in liquidity from being listed on the New York Exchange, and we've definitely seen that, which I think bodes well for us. I think it's a very important for our investors. And over the course of today and tomorrow, I'll be meeting with a lot of investors here. It's a very efficient way of getting to see a lot of the owners of the company.
I mean, I come here to shop. That's really a question for me. Before we get to the big issues of the day, and prediction markets are coming, I promise, let's go through your global vantage point just a little bit more, especially with the outperformance with Italy, Southeast Europe, Africa. What are you learning from your more mature markets, and what's still needed in emerging markets?
We're always surprised when we make acquisitions about how much we can learn from these businesses. And I think it's one of the real testaments of the team is that we'll go in and we'll listen and learn a lot, and often find product ideas or pieces of technology we can take and deploy in other markets around the world. One thing that goes without saying, I think everybody in this room would recognize it, is the importance of responsible gaming, and that's something which we see in different places from a sort of maturity perspective in different markets around the world. We try and take a leading position in all the markets in which we operate. We believe it's very important to drive a race to the top in that area. And and indeed, here in the States, we've brought in our real-time sort of check-in tool, which is based on learning from a very similar solution that we have in Australia. So we definitely see different challenges around responsible gaming or advertising in different markets around the world, and those are things which we can learn and draw on and bring to our bring to our different markets.
I imagine that scale helps you identify the patterns to be a platform that promotes responsible gambling sustainably as well.
Yeah, it's a core. It's absolutely core for us, right? So it runs through the business. It's integral to what we do. So it's something we think deeply about in all the markets in which we operate.
All right, let's talk about the U.S. Let's talk about FanDuel. You have actually increased and even improved and boosted your outlook, and that's despite what we're hearing about the consumer feeling less rosy about the economy. Your peers have also said they're not seeing weakness. So share with me your thinking on where sports betting, where online gaming actually falls in the spectrum of consumer spending.
Our experience operating around the world is that sports betting and online gaming is actually very defensive. So in times of consumer stress, you might find that people will sort of trade down. So instead of watching a game in a bar and spending a lot of money that way, they can watch it at home. But either way, they want to get their parlay on. They want to have that excitement of seeing whether they can guess what's going to happen in the game. And so historically, when we look at the financial crisis or other areas where consumers have been squeezed, we haven't seen any material impacts on our business. And I expect that to be very similar here in the US. We're a business here with FanDuel that's very focused on the recreational consumer base, and we'd expect that to be very similar.
I imagine also the growth of the industry in general maybe outpacing even any weakness that the consumer might be seeing.
Yeah, I think we, just that, the core business that we have, we think is very defensive. Mm-hmm. And, we've got very good tailwinds from a growth perspective. We're still in the early days of growing the industry. So I think that helps us, add to the growth. But I think the core business is very defensive in times of consumer stress.
Speaking of growth, let's talk about the future, where it's going. You and the CME Group had a big deal that you announced this summer. There will be a new FanDuel Markets app powered by the CME Group, according to the CEO of CME Group, Terry Duffy, talking to my friends Joe and Tracy on Bloomberg Odd Lots. Can you explain the intent of this move, given that sports events aren't included right now? What was the origin story of this deal? Why did you pick the CME Group? Why did they pick you?
Well, we obviously are reasonably familiar with this space. We operate the Betfair exchange in many markets around the world, which is a peer-to-peer platform. It has a lot of very similar characteristics to the way in which we're seeing some of this prediction market stuff unfold here in the States. And so, we were obviously very thoughtful about what we're seeing in terms of where the regulations are going. And when I met with Terry and the team at CME, it was a very like-minded sort of coming together of minds. And we're very excited about the opportunities that we've got in front of us for a range of products that we can bring to the market here in the US, leveraging our expertise and clearly the sort of the capabilities of CME as well. And I think it's exciting, the possibilities in front of us.
Let's talk more about that, because this is the way that the CME Group has been describing this partnership and what it benefits and how it benefits their business. They're calling it a distribution play. They're calling this an expansion of their retail trading strategy. They're calling this a strategy to go after the, quote, traders of tomorrow. What do you make of that characterization?
I mean, I think that they're very clear about what we're trying to achieve with this. Whether it's with trading of financial products, some of the leisure entertainment, or indeed other things which might be closer to home for us. We see there being very strong possibilities to bring our capabilities here to the US market, and that's something which we'll make available for consumers soon. For CME, they do want to get closer to the retail consumers, and we've got a terrific brand and lots of lots of customers in the market. So I think it's a very exciting opportunity for us both.
Before we got on stage this morning, there was some news that was made. ICE investing $2 billion into Poly Market, while it's still really not operational here in the US. What was going through your head as you saw the headline?
Well, there's a lot of news flow in this space at the moment, and I'm pretty sanguine about it actually. I think that when I look at all the sort of outcomes that are possible, I think we're very well placed actually, irrespective of which path we end up following. So and that's because of the capabilities that we have. It's the relationships that we form, the partnerships, and the brand and distribution that we have here in the States. So yeah, I'm excited about it, and I can see why other people are wanting to get into the market.
I mean, they're not the only ones. Obviously, Robinhood and Kalshi. I'm also curious, when you saw that Kalshi introduced a build your combo feature, which is very much like same game parlay, do you view that as a loophole to sports betting?
Look, we should say that actually building same game parlay products are not easy. There are lots of my competitors in this room or in this building today, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to catch up with us, and we're powering ahead, right? Because we're not standing still. So building these same game parlays, the same game parlay plus products is not easy, right? And solving the positive and negative correlated pricing associated with them is complex. And I think it's very difficult to deploy that through a prediction market. We'll get some clarity around where the regulators stand on this stuff, but the My Combo stuff looks very suspiciously like sports betting to me.
Suspicious. Got it. So with the 20 years plus of experience that you all have with Betfair Exchange, how do you think that will help inform your strategy going forward with more peer-to-peer products?
We obviously we operate this the Betfair Exchange product in the UK, and it definitely appeals to a subset of consumers. But it's worth recognizing that there are some challenges with it. You can't offer generosity through the Betfair Exchange. It's very difficult to actually technically do that on these platforms, and that's because you're sat in the middle. You're not the you're not the principal, and so it's the principal that needs to effectively offer the generosity. So that's one challenge. And consumers love generosity. They're in it for the entertainment and the excitement, and I think it's worth recognizing that. But the other thing as well is that it is very difficult to find liquidity in all of the different permutations and combinations that you see in the parlay product. And if I look at the work that we're doing with Your Way, which is a product which people will see here for FanDuel, we've got an equivalent product in the UK as well. We're getting to the point now where we have effectively a limitless assortment of products available for consumers to choose from, and it's very difficult to come anywhere close to that in a place where you have to deploy capital behind each and every point in that sort of matrix. It's very difficult to do.
Philosophically, I'm curious how you're viewing this moment where you're seeing this convergence of this new category overlap. What does all of this say about the way that people view money these days?
There's a clue in how we describe ourselves, right? We call ourselves Flutter Entertainment, and ultimately that's what we bring to life for our consumers around the world. And I think that it's worth us remembering that that's our lens on it. That's how we're thinking about how we go to market. So whether that's with the Paddy Power brand, which is sort of iconic in its irrelevance and sort of humor that it brings to its advertising. The same is true with Sportsbet as well. In Australia. We have different brand positionings, but ultimately it's about bringing entertainment for life. And I think that that's what we strive to do. There are different product categories that we can apply that to. So our online casino business, the novelty bets that we'll do in many markets around the world. So I think it's that's the way that we think about it. And when you look at it on that basis, I think there are some quite compelling places that we can take our brand to.
But sort of on the other side of what the CME Group is saying that you're bringing to the table, do you see this type of product bringing in a fundamentally different kind of consumer into a category that you all haven't seen yet?
Well, I spend time, looking at what our customers are saying, right? And for those of us who delve into Reddit and some of the other forums, you can see how what our consumers are saying and thinking. And people are trying to sort of figure out how they can get an edge and how they can get ahead, and that's part of the game for them. And whether you apply that to sports or some of the other sort of leisure style products or the financial markets, you can see that there's a very strong overlap between these things.
Talking more about the way that you see growth and where it's coming from, a big part of it is really from media and media partnerships. I wonder, does that look like it's a strategy that costs a little bit less than your current kind of customer acquisition costs, especially on the heels of your expanded partnership with Amazon Prime Video, adding the integration natively into a broadcast?
Yeah, we're very excited about the partnership with Amazon. As you say, the integration of the odds, whether that's on a sort of personalized basis, so we can actually show you, the bets that you've got, live on the stream that you're watching, or the ability to sort of overlay in real time what the betting markets are saying about what's going to happen with the play that you're actually seeing on the screen. It's very compelling in terms of adding that excitement to the action. So we're pleased.
As someone who's covered Amazon a long time, I can see Amazon's wheels spinning around this and serving me ads as I'm looking at all of these other things. Looking at just taxes really quickly is another potential hurdle, or where you're seeing maybe growth coming from in terms of innovation. I know you're passing through some of the taxes like in Illinois, but then there's also the upcoming change with the limiting of the losses happening in January. Do you expect that to have a big impact on the business, on the industry?
Yeah, ultimately, if I look at our business around the world, what we find is that our scale helps us in these situations. It helps us because we have a bigger business that we can defray our costs across, and it allows us to sort of mitigate the potential sort of tax changes. Now, I will say, we were very disappointed in terms of what Illinois did. I think to disproportionately impact the very low spending recreational consumer base, I think is really wrong, and I don't think it's a particularly smart way of raising revenues. But typically, we find, and it's true in lots of other industries you'll follow, that as a scale player, you can actually sort of weather this stuff better. And so, look, we'll see how other markets and things tend to evolve, but I think we're well placed.
Toward the end of your conversation on the stage last year, you mentioned that one of the risks that you see your business, or something that you worry about with the maybe growth of your business, is societal license. And there have been some new surveys suggesting that quiet middle that you mentioned last year might be shrinking. How are you thinking about innovation and operating at a time when there is so much more attention on this area of entertainment and gaming innovation, when that is so key, that quiet middle, as you mentioned?
It's really important that we, I think, show all the work that we're doing, across our business to make sure that, we provide a safe and secure, environment for our consumers to have fun. Right? We offer a product that people love using, and we should be really proud of it. And I am. Right? And I think we've got a brilliant set of brands and brilliant products in many markets around the world. I think we need to do a better job of talking about the $100+ million that we're spending on tools and
adoption
solutions to help drive responsible gaming. I think that is very important. The real-time check-in solution that we've got here in the US. I mean, show me a social media business that's stopping their consumers using their product because they're worried they're using it too much. Right? That doesn't happen, but that's what we're doing here in the market. So I think we are very proud of what we're doing, and I think we need to do a better job of telling the story about some of it.
Do you share any of the concerns that the younger generation are turning to these platforms because they feel like they have less of an opportunity to grow financially and economically?
I think that we offer great value sort of entertainment for people. I think it's very well sort of set up to protect people. And I think we're particularly mindful about how we ensure that younger people have those particular protections applied to them. the societal question around what, the roles for young people and stuff is sort of, that's a very big question that I don't think we've got time to discuss now.
We don't have time, and you're lucky we're out of time for now. In the spirit of good sportsmanship, though, would you pay a compliment to the next guy coming up on stage? What would you say that you admire about him?
Well, Jason's coming up now, and I have to say, we're very fortunate that we have all of the capabilities of our international business to deploy here in America to allow us to be the number one business. I think that for Jason and the team, they built a fantastic business without any of that capability, which is very impressive. But look, we like to show them our heels and stay ahead, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, thank you so much, Peter, for your time and for these lovely gifts. It was so great to spend time with you here on stage.
Thank you.
Amazing.